A heat wave has hit New York, the entire Northeast, under some hot temperatures, but a team that's not hot is the New York Yankees. They continue to struggle in the month of June after losing game one of a three-game set against Cincinnati last night. Welcome back to Bomber Boys Podcast. Justin Chevalella joined by Dylan Price. We'll have to talk about last night's game, some concerns about the New York Yankees, and much more in this episode. But first, as always, Dylan, how you doing?
Doing well, Justin. I'm liking our new digs we're trying out here today as we get into this new era of Bomber Boys that we kicked off last week. But same result for the Yankees, who, as you said, it's very, very hot in the Northeast right now. I picked actually the worst time to go elsewhere as we finally get out of the rain spell. But the Yankees can't get out of their own way and out of the dry spell. This has been a pretty tough couple weeks, tough real start to this new era of Bomber Boys for us. Feels like we're talking about the same thing for the second consecutive week, but this week kind of trying to pinpoint where some of the biggest pain points are for this Yankees lineup. But otherwise, I'm doing well. How you doing, Justin?
Doing well myself. Fun little weekend in the Poconos at the racetrack. A little bit of a delay in Sunday's race, but all around great racing all weekend long. A fun time with some friends as well. And now we jump right back in to the Yankees and how they're doing to this point. They lose yesterday against Cincinnati, and since we were last on air, they split the final two games against the Los Angeles Angels. They took 2 of 3 against Baltimore over the weekend, and yesterday they reverted right back to where they are, struggling when they put runners on base. 0 for 12 with runners in scoring position in yesterday's game, and they took another loss, falling to 45-33 on the season. Dylan, your initial thoughts on what's going on with the Bronx Bombers?
It really does feel like, we went back to last week's show and talked about when you and I taped, it was 29 and a third scoreless frames. It'd go on for one more inning before Jazz Chisholm would break it up with that solo shot. But it feels like, you got over that hump and then went right back into the same slump. You are able to win the weekend with the O's, a great Saturday performance. Clark Schmidt combining with Brubaker to toss that one hitter in a scoreless outing, and the offense poured through. But I would have liked a little bit of a more even distribution from those 9 runs, sprinkle a little bit more in Friday night, sprinkle a little bit in last night. But what we've really seen is that some of the biggest holes in this Yankees lineup have been exploited, and the pitching staff can only, as we said last week, do so much to cover it up. You can have the gems from Schmidt, and really feels like he's starting to dial it in at a high clip. And now you've kind of got a 3-headed monster at the top of this rotation. And Rodon and Fried, haven't been their best outings out of late, but can you blame them? Because they've had 0 run support every time they've towed the rubber as of late. So I think we've seen some of the biggest pain points exploited in recent games for the Yankees. And it feels like we're kind of nagging all of this, despite the fact they're still atop the American League East, and they did just get a win this weekend against the O's. But when you look at this team holistically and you look at the Yankees of these past couple years, June, July continues to be their weak point. And right now there's even more weak points sprinkled about this lineup that could be stinging them into August and as we continue to get into this summer and then into the fall.
Yeah, I want to go back to one of the conversations you talked about, or one of the guys you talked about. That's Clark Schmidt. I don't think enough people are talking about what Clark Schmidt is doing for this Yankee team. And honestly, Dylan, as we were preparing for this episode, I think we may have forgotten about how good Clark Schmidt has been lately. 25 and a third consecutive scoreless innings, went 7 innings of no hit, no run baseball, 5 strikeouts and 2 walks against Baltimore over the weekend. The numbers don't lie. Clark Schmidt has been one of the best starters in the American League since late last year. It's him and Tariq Skubal, I think 1 and 2 for ERA, with Skubal number 1. And I believe Clark is at a 2.84 in that same time, sitting at number 2 in the American League. And, he's a guy that we came into the year, I remember saying when we were still at Penn State, that Clark, you can, kind of rely on maybe 5 2/3 with 3 or 4 earned runs. That's not Clark Schmidt. And maybe it was bad to overlook what he did towards the end of last year, but Clark Schmidt isn't that guy anymore. It goes 5 2/3, maybe 5 1/3, maybe even 5, allowing 3 earned runs and 4 earned runs, which we kind of came accustomed to a couple of seasons ago. That was, the epitome of Clark Schmidt starts. But here we are talking about Clark Schmidt being arguably on a different team. He's an ace. The Yankees have Carlos Rodon and Max Fried in front of them right now, and they have Garrett Cole on the IL and Luis Heel. Clark Schmidt was supposed to be the fifth starter, if that, coming into the year, depending on what the Yankees were able to do with Marcus Stroman's contract before he got injured. But wow, I mean, I don't think it's talked enough about what Clark Schmidt has done for this team. It was impressive over the weekend. There was a short little outburst by a couple Yankee fans on Twitter that, oh, you shouldn't have pulled him. You shouldn't have pulled him. Look, I love going for the no-hitter in that situation, but Clark Schmidt's at 106 pitches, the most he's had in a start this year. It was a career high, actually, in pitches for Clark Schmidt over the weekend. And the Yankees are injured in their pitching staff. I mean, we'll get into it here momentarily, but Ryan Yarbrough just got placed on the IL. They had Winans up last night to get that start. Obviously, Luis Heel's not back. Marcus Stroman's working his way back. If the Yankees decide to bring him to the major leagues, you don't risk hurting Clark Schmidt in June for a no-hitter that honestly probably, let's be real, may not have happened. That's the thing. There were still 6 outs to get, and you don't take that risk for injury. But what Clark Schmidt's done for this team has been overlooked time and time again. And honestly, it's been overlooked because of the struggles of the bats that we talked about last week. You already brought him up. 0 for 12 in runners in scoring position last night. Going into last night's game, the Yankees were, let me find it here. I wrote it down. They entered yesterday hitting 189 with a 489 OPS, which is a league worst with runners in scoring position in their previous 11 games. That dates back to June 12th. Well, I mean, it continued yesterday, as we talked about, 0 for 12 with runners in scoring position. And you kind of look at it, and you can look at what the Yankees have done. Aaron Judge can hit with runners on. Paul Goldschmidt can hit with runners on. Cody Bellinger. Judge is batting 375, Paul Goldschmidt 352, and Cody Bellinger 297. JC Escara, it's limited with just 16 at bats, but he's hitting 313. And then Jazz and Wells are hitting right around 250. But after that, the lineup just falls off. You've got Volpe at a 222 clip with runners on, Jason Dominguez at 200, Trent Grisham at 182, and Ben Rice at even lower, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, the Yankees just don't have bottom of the order depth to hit with runners on. And that's a problem because who's getting on? The guys in front of them. And the Yankees, that bottom half of the lineup just is not producing. And they really need them to start producing because this is the problem with the Yankees right now. I mean, the only run came across on a solo home run from Judge last night as he continues to do well in a potentially MVP season. That conversation's heating up now too, but it's been a disappointing offensive outburst or lack of offense lately for the Yankees.
And, last week we went through and kind of put into perspective over the last 15 games, how everybody's been doing. We're not going to beat the same dead horse. There's not a lot that's changed in the past 6 days since we got together. There is the good performances from Goldschmidt. And you talked about, how successful he's been. Aaron Boone raving about him the other day, and even the speed he's got at this stage of his career when he should be on the back nine. He's got more hustle than half these guys that are, just a year or two older than you and I are. So it's definitely been impressive what he's done, obviously, this season. What Judge has done has been the topic of all Major League Baseball. And then, of course, we talk about Ben Rice and Trent Grisham kind of coming down to life over these past couple of weeks, but they've still been productive. Jazz, has come back and kind of found his rhythm and really sparked the offense to an extent. And for all the mistakes he's made, whether it be at the dish or even in the field, and then running through the Orioles catcher the other day, sending him into orbit. There's all that Jazz comes with, all the excitement, all the polarizing nature that he brings. He's been almost a year into his time with the Yankees, a welcome sight and a welcome acquisition because he brings that positive energy and also brings pretty much consistency at the dish. He ebbs and flows. He's now at 237 average, but in these last 15 games, when everybody's been slumping, he's 16 for 53 with a 302 average and a 387 on base percentage. He's also got 9 runs driven home in that time span. So you're getting productivity from those guys, even as you mentioned, Austin Wells, 250. But there's a guy we're going to talk about in a couple moments here who continues to be a black hole in the lineup. And I know we have different perspectives on him, so it'll be fun to kind of debate that in a beat here. But it's even the Jason Dominguez. It's even, what happens when you do pull out Austin Wells for a game? Well, JC's not exactly been the most productive in a giant perspective of things. Obviously, DJ LeMahieu ebbs and flows. Giancarlo Stanton struggled since coming back to an extent. And Oswald Peraza, we've finally seen a full dosage to an extent of what Oswald Peraza can be. And I know there's talk right now about training him to be maybe an outfielder too, so that you can kind of use him off the bench. But it feels like we're finally seeing everything obviously way too late, as we've talked about on this program for some time now. You've heard his confidence in spades over these past couple years, but when you talk about those bottom of the order guys and then some of those bench guys that have slotted in that spot, Peraza's batting 158 on the season. It feels like, as much crap as we gave Pablo Reyes, it wasn't much worse with Reyes either. So it's definitely at a point here where they've got to find something or somebody, whether it's calling somebody up from Scranton or making a low scale trade at the deadline. There's got to be somebody who can come in here, and even if it's just a bench piece, add some spark and add some energy, because Peraza, JC, even the young kids in Dominguez and Volpe, and this bottom of the lineup right now has just been, when everybody's sputtering at the top two, there's no welcome sight when you get down to 6, 7, 8, 9.
Yeah, I mean, it's been bad, whoever really goes in there. And, I think back to the conversation quick on Oswald Peraza, I have a feeling the Yankees aren't trying him out in the outfield for their sake. I think they're starting to get him there so he's more versatile, to get him off the roster in a trade at some point. He still is young. He's a guy that was a, top prospect in the organization, a guy that there was talks maybe he could be the guy instead of Volpe, those two going back and forth. But I mean, Peraza, the last couple of years, his confidence has been killed. Now he gets the chance to really try, and prove himself at the major league level, and he has not been able to do so. Really, not great to see. It's another one of those conversations that we could always have, no matter what week it is, about Yankees and developing. And, a guy that was highly touted not being able to develop, a guy, in Peraza, who we both, I think, were big fans of, thinking that he could have an impact, if not could be a big trade piece. I don't think he can be a big trade piece right now. I certainly think he can be a trade piece. I'm just not sure what he could go. I just want to quickly mention that as well, now that I think about it, and that, saying that he was a highly touted prospect. I mean, another highly touted prospect came out this week in Clint Frazier and had some stuff to say about the Yankees and what they think and how they work things, and how you're not really a player, you're just a number when you come to the Yankees, and analytics tells the story. It was a conversation that I don't think has been talked about enough, but it's certainly something we continue to see, and I think that's a great segue into our first real segment here, which is the Volpe talk. Volpe hitless in 8 of his last 9, 3 for his last 22. But you talk about those hits. He had a good performance over the weekend against Baltimore. I believe it was in Saturday's game. It was a 3 for 4 day. He had a home run. It seemed like he was finding his confidence. And then we hear after the game, oh, yeah, he's got a scheduled day off on Sunday, and Aaron Boone's not moving away from it. So it brings up that Clint Frazier conversation of, yeah, analytics is telling the Yankees everything right now, and they are not feeling the vibe. The one thing analytics can't do is can't tell you a player's confidence. It can't tell you how you're feeling. You got to be feeling great after Saturday if you're 3 for 4, if you're Anthony Volpe. And then to get benched, he came off the bench and worked a walk in a later situation. But I mean, it brings up the larger conversation on Anthony Volpe, the struggles he's had throughout his career, and it's just a matter to me when you look at Anthony Volpe. I mean, he might be a guy that most fits into that category from Frazier of you're kind of just a number. If you look at what Anthony Volpe has done over his career, and Dylan and I have talked about this before, the Yankees rarely want to give the guy a day off. He's played in 77 of the 78 games for the Yankees, and that includes his scheduled day off that ended up not being a day off because he came off the bench. But it's just that fact that the Yankees have no feel when it comes to Volpe. He's struggling. You don't give him a day off. He's getting hot. Oh, well, our analytics say he needs the day. There's no feel when it comes to this guy who's a former top prospect, a former first-round pick, and a guy that I still think's got a lot left with him, just 24 years old in his 3rd season. But it's certainly at the fact that this Volpe talk has taken, I think, Yankee world by storm, and we're going to get into it too.
The 3 for his last 22 keeps flashing on that ticker. All 3 of those hits came in Saturday's performance. And then, as you mentioned, it was honestly, I don't know how much it really was analytics or it was the Yankees fan base, the Yankees Twitter world, everybody coming after Boone and saying, give the kid an off day because he is slumping. And then all of a sudden he explodes on Saturday. Well, and then he gets his off day because it felt almost like Boone saying out of spite, we're going to still give him that off day. It can be a flash in the pan. And ultimately, that's what we've seen. Now, if he had not had the off day Sunday, would it have been a flash in the pan? That remains to be seen. But holistically, this is a Volpe that 23 for his last 102 at bats, 11 for his last 55. This is an Anthony Volpe that is in a massive slump after another, for the second consecutive year, pretty strong start to the season where he was mashing and also really crushing it against lefties to start the season. You look back at what he did in that Dodgers series was a high point for Volpe. And then you come into this June month here that as we kind of round it out, and it has been the Anthony Volpe that Yankees fans have feared is not just a number. Because that's the point there. You just mentioned Frazier's line about analytics and that when you become a part of the Yankees machine, you're just another cog in it. You're just another number in the lineup. Anthony Volpe's not just a number. That's the reason that we're in this spot. You look at what the Mets just did with Francisco Alvarez, a guy who has been lauded heading into this season as one of the cornerstones of that franchise moving forward. They just sent him down to Syracuse. They have no hesitation because to them, he is just a number. He's just another guy in the lineup, but that's not a hesitation the Mets have had really with anybody. They did the same thing with Beatty. They've done the same thing with some of their prized possessions and top prospects in the organization. They have not hesitated to utilize the minors for guys who are under the age of 25, 26, whatever it may be. For Anthony Volpe, because you brought him up and made that grand spectacle of it a couple years ago, because he beat out Oswald Peraza for the position, because he has been this kind of franchise guy, he's been this era's Jeter that they want him to be, but he hasn't performed like number 2 did. He's performed more so like Eduardo Nunez did when Nunez was supposed to succeed Jeter all those years ago. This has been a performance from Volpe that if he was just a number, would have him back in Scranton. But that brings the same back to my original point there. He's not just a number because the fans adore him. He's the hometown kid, all that stuff. It feels like a large portion of the fan base right now is souring on him for his performance and just saying, give him that stint, not because we want to get rid of Volpe, but because we want to see him get better and we want to see him mature a little bit and have time to just take the pressure off. I think that's the one thing that we'll be in agreement on here in this debate before you get into probably a little bit more negative perspective than I had on it. It would be great to see him get some time off. Great to see him go down to Scranton and kind of refine his mojo again. It's not going to happen because he's not just a number, but it would be great to see happen. But I'm sure you don't have the same optimistic perspective that I at least kind of share in this regard.
You'll actually be surprised is that I am more on the optimistic trend this time around with Volpe than I am on the pessimistic side, which obviously we know that doesn't really happen with me. I was the guy who came on here when we were doing this stream last year and said that they needed to do something with him because he hit the same struggle about the same point last year. And I said, they got to do something. And they never did. And it's the problem we're still having here that we're talking about. But my issues with Anthony Volpe are less about Anthony Volpe and more about the Yankees. He's used like he's Derek Jeter. I mean, I told you, he's played in 77 of 78 games. There is no reason for Volpe to play in 77 of 78 at this point of his career, given what he is doing. Now, if he was hitting 305 with, seven, whatever amount of home runs, that doesn't matter. I'll get into that point in a second. But if he was hitting higher, maybe even like 270, 280, whatever the case is, maybe even 260, I'll go that low. I mean, yeah, play him in 77 of 78 games, but he's not doing that. He's in a constant struggle this year. And it's the point of, yes, you need to give him some time off, maybe 2 days in a row, maybe 3, whatever the case is, you got to give it to him. I completely disagreed with Aaron Boone after a 3-hit game going and saying, well, you know what? He's played in a lot of straight games, and I get it. The Yankees are in a midst of, I believe it's 14 consecutive games in 14 nights or something like that. So yeah, everyone should be getting constant time off, except if your name's Aaron Judge, and rightfully so. I mean, I don't believe he has over the 14 games. No, that Kansas City game was part of this stretch, so he has. I mean, if Aaron Judge is getting time off in this stretch of games, then Anthony Volpe better be getting time off, and Anthony Volpe should be getting more time off than Aaron Judge is getting. First of all, Aaron Judge should have never gotten that day off. We talked about that last week. And second, there's no reason that Volpe and Judge should have been out of the lineup the same amount of times over this stretch, which again is one time. Aaron Judge has played 78 games. Paul Goldschmidt and Anthony Volpe had played 77. My point here is that let's take Jason Dominguez, for example, a guy that's batting better. He's batting 242 with a 333 on base percentage and a 379 slugging percentage. 6 home runs, which is fewer than Volpe, and 27 runs batted in, also fewer than Volpe. He's played in 65 games of the Yankees 78. And I get it. There's more of a logjam in the outfield with Trent Grisham, Aaron Judge, Cody Bellinger. I understand that point of it, but the point still remains that you have guys on the bench that can go play for Volpe. Dominguez struggled. They gave him time off. He got a little hot. Yes, he's cooled down again. I mean, he had a nice base hit in the ninth, I believe it was yesterday, hit the other way. I do believe Jason Dominguez is going to find his stride. His batting average has gone up recently. Whatever the case is, it's the point of Anthony Volpe and Jason Dominguez is having a better season statistically than Volpe is. Get rid of the defensive talk, and I think Jason Dominguez has been fine in the outfield compared to all the concerns going into the year. Why not give Volpe some time off? That's not on Anthony Volpe to say, I need 3 days off. Of course, he's a competitor. He's never going to want that time off. That's for Aaron Boone and the rest of the coaching staff to go, all right, Volpe's batting 220 right now. And over his last, whatever stretch of games, he's 150. Let's give him some time. Right the head. That's all he needs, I think. I mean, there's another thing he needs, and I'll go to that now. Michael Kay said yesterday on the broadcast, would you sign up for Volpe losing some home runs to focus on slapping the ball the other way and getting more singles? Paul O'Neill quickly answered, I'd sign up right now. That's another problem the Yankees have with Anthony Volpe, and it starts with a thing that started in the beginning of the year with the torpedo bats. Anthony Volpe, with his 9 home runs this year, after hitting just 12 last year, following a pretty good rookie year where I believe it was 24, it was somewhere around there, forgetting off the top of my head. But, I mean, Volpe's looking to be a power shortstop. What made Derek Jeter so successful? He wasn't a power guy. He was, let me take the ball where I can get the ball. And I don't know why they're not approaching Anthony Volpe the same way. I am in no means saying that Anthony Volpe is the next Derek Jeter. He's too late for that. By this point in Derek Jeter's career, I believe he had an AL Rookie of the Year, or at least was up there in the AL Rookie of the Year talk, and he had a World Series ring, or probably 5 by this point, even though it's only 3 years into Volpe's career. But, I mean, it's the point of why not simplify the approach? Derek Jeter had a simple approach of let me just get some hits. But if you think about one of his biggest career moments, it was a monster home run off of David Price for his 3,000th hit. Home runs happen. If you have some power, if you have some pop, you're going to hit home runs. But why is Anthony Volpe looking for a home run every time he goes to bat? I think it's a problem for a couple more Yankees. I think Jazz, for example, has been great since coming off the IL. Why? Because he's not pressing as much for the home run. Has he had, I believe he has 1 or 2 since coming off the IL too. Perfectly fine. They come if you're hitting and have some power, which Jazz has and which Volpe has. But Anthony Volpe continues to press and look for the home run, and rightfully so, because that's what the Yankees preach. They want the home runs. Home runs mean automatic runs. And right now with the Yankees, well, if you get on base, they're not doing anything with you. But Anthony Volpe is a guy with speed and a guy that should be able to get on base more often. Now, I don't really want to get into the base running conversation right now with Volpe, but he's 8 for 15 on stolen base attempts this year. That's not good for the speed he has and the stolen base prowess he's shown in the past. But again, he's trying to press. He's trying to do more to make up for the lack of, production he's had this year. And I personally think more of the blame falls on the coaching staff than it falls on Anthony Volpe. And I believe with a simple, switch of the approach for Volpe and a simple mindset to go for contact rather than power, we're going to be talking about Anthony Volpe batting 260 by the, end of the year maybe. I mean, at least better than what he's hitting right now, which is 220 or 233. We could be talking with a couple, of changes to the approach of Anthony Volpe being the guy that we thought Anthony Volpe was going to be.
And Anthony Volpe can still be that guy. I mean, you hit the nail
he's
on
24. He's 3 years old. Or 3 years old. He's 3 years into his career.
You hit the nail on the head. He can still be that guy. I would like that to be kind of pushed out to the entire New York Yankees fan base right now, because everybody's up in arms, not under the or over the age of 22, 23 on Twitter right now. There's the kids that love Volpe because he is that hometown guy. And I said, again, this generation's kind of Jeter type at shortstop. Obviously, this generation's Jeter wears number 99 and is probably going to win the American League MVP this year. But when you talk about what he is, he's the hometown kid, the fan favorite, yada, yada, yada. He can also still be that same productive player on the field. He's still the team leader in doubles. He's still on pace at this point in time to have a new career high in runs driven home. He is 41 right now over the past 2 seasons. He had 60 in each of those seasons. Yes, you mentioned he's been caught on base, already tied for his career high. He's been caught on base 7 times this season. His OPS, though, is already 724. It should dip down at some point a little bit more there. Hopefully it rises up. But as it would stand right now, that would be over 30, actually it would be over 50 points higher, or 0.05 higher than his career high, which was in his rookie season. This is a guy who's won a Gold Glove. But at the same time, his fielding woes have been prevalent right now. So you take the good with the bad. He's on pace for the career high in RBI. He's the team leader in doubles. He's on pace for a career high in OPS. But he's struggling with his speed and with his legs, which has been one of the most advantageous parts of Volpe's game. And he's struggling with his glove right now, which for Volpe, a guy who's won a Gold Glove in his first 2 seasons, is a confidence issue. I don't think that's a skill issue.
It's a I need 3 days to get my head right issue on the bench.
His head the Yankees won't give it to him now, and the answer is not sending him to Scranton again.
No, not one bit.
The answer is just simply giving him some time off, because if the best aspects of his game right now are struggling, his speed and his fielding, then nothing else is going to follow suit from there. Yep. You said it perfectly. It's a change of approach. It's a change of approach that has been needed since last year, since this time last year when we had this conversation about Volpe. The skill set is there. This is the same kid who was one of the top, if not the top prospect in this organization, the crown jewel of this organization, not named Jason Dominguez. Volpe is still that guy. He's still got that same skill set. But when he's losing it on the base pass right now, he's losing it with his glove, he's making errant throws like he did last night. That's a confidence issue for Volpe, not a skill issue. That's the point of this conversation for you and I. And I'm shocked we're in agreement on it. I figured you were going to bash the guy with a hammer. Nope. But shockingly, we're in agreement on that. This is just a confidence issue for number 11. This isn't a skill issue. Give him his time off, maybe a game or 2 over the next 4 games, and kind of start easing him into a couple changes at the dish and getting that confidence back, because it can't help him right now hearing this besmirching on social media either. So I think it's completely a confidence thing. And at some point, I hope to see that Volpe, like you said, who's batting 260 and gives up on just trying to monster mash them all over the short porch and all over the field, and instead just gets into a more rhythmic approach at the dish and is just trying to slap it the opposite way and get on base and create opportunities for the Yankees. Not like they've done anything with him as of late, but at least create them so that there's somebody on the base pass. And hopefully with that confidence, he's moving around the base pass a little bit better too in due time. But I'm glad we both have a semi-optimistic approach about Volpe. I figured you were just going to bash him over the head.
No, I mean, if this was a skill issue, he wouldn't have posted a 3.4 WAR last year. He wouldn't have upped his batting average by 32 points going from year 1 to year 2. His on-base percentage by 10 points, which has now risen even further. He's, up 13 points on base percentage. It's in him. It's clearly there, or else his numbers wouldn't have improved from year 1 to year 2. He's got skill. He just needs confidence. And it's tough. We hear it all the time. New York brings out sometimes the worst in players because of the pressure. And right now, the confidence is decreasing. The pressure is increasing. Everyone in New York is talking about it. And to me, I think it's a lot simpler, and to you as well, it seems like a lot simpler of a fix than or making it out to be. Obviously hoping for some good results from Anthony Volpe over the next couple of months, helping the Yankees maybe get back to the World Series and win it, albeit that looks like maybe a lost cause with the way they are going right now. And now we move on to the other side of the ball where there might be some panic. We bring our first edition of the Pinstripe Panic Meter after Ryan Yarborough was placed on the 15-day IL over the weekend with a right oblique strain. Ryan Yarborough came into the year looking like he would be the long reliever for the Yankees, but after a couple of injuries, the former Tampa Bay Ray, the former Kansas City Royal, LA Dodger, Toronto Blue Jay, kind of a journeyman over the first bit of his career. The 33-year-old 3-1, a 3.90 ERA, 16 appearances, 8 games started, 55 and a third pitched, 48 hits, 24 runs. They've all been earned. He's got 49 strikeouts to 17 walks. I mean, first, before we get into necessarily the panic part of it, talking about what Ryan Yarborough was able to do, has been able. It seems like by all indication he'll be back relatively close to those 15 days. There hasn't been a real timetable, but it didn't sound like the panic from the Yankees was too much. We'll see if ours differs in a bit. But just what Ryan Yarborough has been able to do this year, Dylan, it's not, I really think, anything anyone expected.
I mean, he had a rough outing on the 7th against Boston where he gave up 8 runs in 4 innings. But then his last 2 outings, 4 2/3 against Boston, next time out at Fenway, allowed just a run. And then the next time out, 2 earned against LA in 5 1/3. Overall, as a starter, was productive, was able to eat innings. He's not the guy that you were expecting to go 7 frames and pitch scoreless baseball. He wasn't expected.
He's the new Clark Schmidt.
Yes, he's the new Clark Schmidt, and he's honestly done it to a better clip and a better performance rate than what we expected from Will Warren, who we thought would be the true new Clark Schmidt this season. Yarborough was able to eat a couple innings. Yarborough was able to come out and get you into the bullpen and get you some quality innings pitched and nothing that's going to sting you too bad. He's not the guy, like you said, it's the Clark Schmidt brand of baseball. He's not the guy who was going to get 6 scoreless frames, 7 scoreless frames, but he was the guy who was going to eat 5 1/3 and send you into the bullpen with some mojo. And hopefully, when the offense actually can provide runs across the plate, a lead. But in Yarborough's case here, he was the 5th guy who was never supposed to be the 5th guy. He was the guy into this rotation that was never expected to move out of the pen. And now he's on the IL at a time where, if Luis Gil was being ramped up right now, and if Gil was expected to be back in the next 2 weeks, well, you can kind of bide time with this approach of throwing some guys from Scranton out there, throwing some young guys up, or throwing some guys in the bullpen as openers to kind of bide time here. But it's a 15-day IL stint at a time where Gil is just starting to throw and getting into a rhythm here with simulated games. And doing so against random staffers of the Yankees organization at that, by the way. By the way, if we could sign up to take at-bats against Gil, I would do it. I'd be scared shitless, but I would do it. But Yarborough is in this spot right now where he was supposed to bide that time till Gil's back. Now he's hurt at a time they needed him the most. And clearly last night with Winans, a good first couple innings, but could not get into any semblance of a rhythm. So I don't know if you can go first on the panic here, but it clearly, in the tone of my voice, sounds a little apprehensive.
Well, 1 through 10. This is how we're going to play the Pinstripe Panic Meter. And the hope is that each week, the hope is that there's never anything to panic about, but we know a baseball season's 162 games, and there's going to be things to panic about. At times, we want to do more than just one, but this is the one we have for this week. So we'll play it 1 through 10. Decimals are included. Just to 1 decimal mark. You can't be pulling out like 4.8973. We're not doing that. We are doing just 1 decimal point. So to 1 decimal, 1 through 10, where would, I guess, 0 through 10. Maybe you're not panicking at all. 0 through 10, where would you have Ryan Yarborough on the IL on your panic meter?
See, I tried to throw this to you.
Don't get too far. Yeah, and I'm changing up. Don't get too far into it. I just want the number, then we'll talk it out.
6.7.
All right, so I was going to go a 5.8. So, within a point of each other if we want to make it that way. And I'll go first because, again, you kind of tried to throw it to me and I threw it right back to you. So I'll throw it first. It is of concern. That's why, to me, it's over a 5. Obviously, giving it a 5.8 means I'm not, slamming the table saying Brian Cashman go out and get 2 starting pitchers today or anything like that. But, I mean, the concern is the Yankees' lack of available depth to provide in the absence of Yarborough. Winans going 4 1/3, allowing 4 earned, looked sharp, 9 pitches in the first inning, came back out, did well in the second, and then started to get hit around yesterday. Obviously, we've seen Carlos Carrasco up in this spot to this point this year. Couldn't really get it going. There's not really anyone the Yankees could go into the minor league system and call up right now to take the place of, I guess now it would be Alan Winans' spot if that's how the Yankees plan to play this. To my knowledge, at this point, as we record this, they haven't sent him back down. It looks like he's the guy that might get another spot start here next week for the Yankees. But the reason I'm not panicking too much is it's only the 15-day IL. Now, we don't have a timetable, like I said earlier, but 15 days would be 3 starts. That's not too bad. You can deal with it for three starts, especially considering the Yankees finally have some off days coming up after 14 consecutive games. So you have some room to maneuver this pitching rotation. Also, with what Max Fried, Carlos Rodon, and Clark Schmidt have done, your bullpen has been relatively well rested through those 3 starts, right? I mean, give or take a bad game or two from each of them here or there. But, I mean, average it out. Your bullpen has to go maybe 2 innings, probably, closer to 3 on average when one of those guys is on the mound, but that's normal. And you're getting, your help back in the bullpen as well the last couple of days with, Luke Weaver coming back after what was supposed to be a 4 to 6 week stint. He came back like right after his 15 days ended, which was great sign for the Yankees. And obviously Devin Williams seemingly finding a rhythm for the Yankees at this point. So to me, to have the bullpen well rested, to have 3 starters that are eating innings, the only concern would be what Will Warren is able to do, how much your bullpen has to go when Warren, is out there, which we've seen consistently, the bullpen eating 4+ innings when Warren's out on the mound. So, yeah, you have 2 question marks at the back end of the rotation, but altogether with what Winans did yesterday, 4 earned runs, 4 1/3, you should have been able to win that game against this Cincinnati Reds team. And I think that's the point is the Yankees have right now, and I believe it's ending in the next couple of weeks. I believe there's a athletics series thrown in there. I believe it's 2 weekends from today. If not, it's July 4th weekend. I'm blanking on the schedule right now. But then after that, things, kind of get hard. And then at that point, you're looking at, well, Marcus Stroman's rehabbing. Do you suck it up and put Marcus Stroman back on the major league roster instead of trading him away? And obviously Luis Gil by the end of, it seems the trade deadline area. And we got our patented quote that we told you was going to come last week. We said Aaron Boone's going to say Luis Gil's going to be the trade deadline acquisition. We got that. So it seems like around the end of July. So my panic meter, I'd put at a 5.8 because it doesn't, 1, seem like it's going to be long term. And 2, I think they're, between Stroman and Gil, those options are coming back. And again, the well-rested bullpen always helps out. So I'm not panicking too much, but, last night's game I went into saying the Yankees are probably going to lose this game, regardless if it's the Reds or not. And I just said they should have been able to win yesterday's game. I don't disagree with that fact. They should have been able to win yesterday's game with what Winans was able to hold them to for a while. 6 runs. The Reds haven't been great. Obviously, Chase Burns, the rookie, goes out on the mound tonight for the Reds. But for me, I can't over panic on this. Maybe next week, if we have to revisit after another Winans start, that's different. But for now, I'm going to put it at a 5.8. I'm not going to overreact too much just yet.
For me, I'm more apprehensive because of Will Warren. You kind of said that there, that's the guy leading into Winans, at least figures to be Winans at this point in time. I think that's the problem here, because as much as, and I've been obviously a Will Warren homer for the bulk of our time doing this program, and you've kind of come around on him and then soured on him, and it's ebbed and flowed as he's ebbed and flowed naturally in his first big league season. I think the thing is, you have the Will Warren who can go 5 1/3 and let up 2 runs, whatever it may be, basically just a level up of what Ryan Yarbrough was doing. And that's been okay. And when the Yankees are scoring runs, that's more than okay. And Warren had a career high in strikeouts 2 outings ago. He's looked sharp at times. And really, his last 2 outings, he's stacking starts again. But when you look into the innings he's eating, it's still not been there. And for a guy in Winans who went 4 1/3 last night, and really shouldn't have went out for that third of a frame. That's really where he got stung. It's not something that gives you a lot of confidence that the bullpen's going to have your freshest arms juiced. And then what happens if Fried has a bad outing? What happens if Fried only goes 6 innings at the turn of the rotation? Well, then all of a sudden, you've got a bullpen that is arm ready to turn into rotisserie chickens from some of your longest running guys because you don't have the options. And that's really the concerning part here. And then you look into the minor league system because took a quick gander of what Scranton's got right now. Winans is far and away the best of the starters and the arms they've got. You've got Sean Boyle, who's been in the Yankees organization for a decade. He's 28 at this point in time. He's got a 4.57 ERA. He can eat innings, so that is an option. The guy I would have said would have been a great option would have been Clayton Beeter, who's fully been transitioned into a reliever at this point in time. So it really isn't anybody there for an option that could come in. You could go to the free agent market. You could go to the trade market, but feels like for 3 outings, you're not going to do that. You're just going to bide your time with Winans, and you're going to try to see what you've got, at least to bide innings and eat innings here. So the only reason my panic's slightly higher, just about a point higher, is because Warren leads into him. Otherwise, I think it's something that's manageable. And in a time the Yankees have been slumping, it's just kind of another feather in the cap of if everything's going to go wrong right now, why not add something else right now?
The Yankees, or rather the Somerset Patriots, just announced that Marcus Stroman is continuing his rehab assignment tonight, scheduled to start. Does that change anything for you, having Stroman
No.
nearby?
I'd rather have Winans.
I mean,
I'm still in the same boat we've been in. And I know this is probably another episode worth of talking about, but I think Marcus Stroman just needs to go. And I don't think that's a knack just on Stroman. I think Stroman isn't ready to be a Yankee any longer because this isn't a fit anymore. I mean, this isn't a fit anymore. You can't keep trying to trot him out here and hope something changes. It's just like what happened with Josh Donaldson towards the tail end when he was a Yankee. There's nothing left for him to give, and there's clearly a Yankees fan base and a Yankees team that's kind of soured on him as a legitimate starter. And once Heel gets back and once that rotation's at full health, Yarborough will move to the bullpen and do it with a smile on his face. Stroman's not willing to do that. And honestly, rightfully so. Stroman's got the accolades in the league to kind of call his shots. He doesn't have to be a team guy. So I don't really think there's a reason for him to come back. If he can come and get his start out, cool, but it doesn't feel like it's just going to be one start. It feels like he's going to be either around for a little bit longer and struggling as a starter, or the Yankees just need to ship him off now and cut their losses.
Feels like either way, however you play this, even if Marcus Stroman were to come up for a start or two, you know the Yankees are going to be shopping him. He's a guy that they were going to get rid of in the offseason at the end of spring or during spring training prior to the injuries. It feels like the Yankees are going to, and I said last week I wouldn't necessarily look this way at the trade deadline, but I'm starting to think the Yankees should probably look at a starting pitcher at the deadline. Luis Heel will come back. He slots in for who? Maybe Yarborough, maybe Winans, whatever the case is, whoever's there if Yarborough's injury takes longer. But Will Warren's still been on that struggle bus a little bit as well now. So it feels like, maybe Stroman packaged with somebody to get, it doesn't have to be a top line starter. It doesn't have to be, and it's not going to be Tariq Skubal, but I'm just saying, it doesn't have to be a guy that's been known for being an ace, but a guy that can eat some innings, whether they're, 4 earned runs thrown in those innings or 0 earned runs. To me, I've kind of switched my take the last week since we last did this on if the Yankees would need a starting pitcher at the deadline. I think this injury does do that for me, especially considering I think obliques tend to, you don't know if they're going to heal. You don't know if they're going to heal in 5 days. You don't know if it's going to take a while. We've seen, I believe it was Giancarlo a couple years ago with an oblique that missed a lot of time with his, and it's completely different for a pitcher. So I think the deadline coming up, it doesn't seem like there's going to be a lot of top end starters available. So you might have to overpay, but I mean, that's what World Series teams do. That's what, how the Dodgers have been so successful. They don't wait. They go out and get it. To me, regardless if it's a pitcher, if it's another hitter, I think the Yankees should have made a move by now if they're really serious about contending again. And I get it's early, and some teams, we talked about Eugenio Suarez last week on the show. The Diamondbacks probably aren't ready to make that decision, still floating about 500. There's probably a bunch of teams not ready, but there's some teams you can know you'll get some guys off of. And for me, I've switched on that. Do you agree? You think the Yankees should look for a starter, or do you think they should just bolster the bullpen and the lineup?
I think this is kind of the do or die time for Will Warren to kind of have his claim in that, because if Warren can go out and shove these next couple outings, then it goes, okay, why don't we truly do what Boone just said and bide time till Heal's back? And there's your rotation heading into the hopefully postseason of you've got Fried off the top, Rodon, Schmidt, Heel, however you want to align that. And, one of those guys probably comes out just more as the opener and plays around in that role based on who's hot at the time. But as it really stands, Will Warren could be that innings eater out of the bullpen. And again, kind of like Yarbrough do with a smile on his face. But as it heads into September, August, July here, Warren can still be that guy who gets you 5 1/3. The only problem is that this is the most Warren will have pitched in his career, just like Heel a year ago. So that's the worrisome part. But at the same time, if Warren goes out and pitches pretty solid these next 3 outings when you need him to prove it the most, well, then he can keep himself at that 5 spot. Heel comes back, and all of a sudden this rotation looks set to go into the home stretch. But at the same time, if he doesn't do well and the loss of Yarbrough here is only amplified because of it, then yeah, I think there's low risk starters you can get on the market that could come in here and fill that void as the 5-hole guy for the remainder of the season. But I don't think the Yankees want to do that. I think obviously they would rather kind of go with the homegrown rotation look for the most part of those 3, 4, 5 guys. But I think there could be a need there, and it could only be made grander if, things don't look great over these next couple outings.
And we know that regardless of who the Yankees get, the 5 starter, 5th starter doesn't really matter in the postseason. 3 or 4 is all you need and all you're going to want. And Will Warren could be a bullpen option. It could be shutdown time for Will Warren too, depending on how the Yankees want to use him and maybe get one of their other arms up there just in case. But before the Yankees can get to the trade deadline, a couple of them will head down to Atlanta. We got the first All-Star update this weekend. Well, there's only one Yankee that would be lined up at the moment to go to Atlanta. And of course, that is Aaron Judge, who is also likely the MVP of the American League, albeit there's been a lot of conversation yet about who, will be in the competition with him for MVP. It feels like the MVP race, the home run race, I think is going to be fun between him and Cal Raleigh. But Yankees going to Atlanta. It's Aaron Judge. You got Paul Goldschmidt second at first base. You have Ben Rice, I believe it's second at designated hitter, and you have Cody Bellinger 6th or 7th, kind of in the middle of the pack in the outfield. And Dylan, it kind of no surprise there. Bellinger is 6th in the outfield. This is exactly what I would have expected. I honestly think Ben Rice has more votes than I would have expected him to have, but it's exactly what you expect when you talk about the Yankees and the All-Star game.
Yeah, as it stands, as you mentioned, Judge would be the only one locked in, and he's got a wide gap on Riley Green, Javi Baez, Mike Trout, Stephen Kwan, and Cody Bellinger for those spots. 2.7 million or so votes for Judge have already come in. Green is the next closest with 1.37 as it stands. After that, though, the race isn't that far off for Belly to catch Baez, Trout, or Kwan. I don't exactly think Trout's had that all-star season either, especially with how banged up he's been. As it stands, obviously, Cal Raleigh, the next closest after Judge in terms of votes. He has been spectacular this season. I would say first base is a winnable potential race here. Guerrero leapfrogged Goldschmidt since the last update, and this is now the second ballot that has come through. 1.19 votes for Guerrero, 1.18 for Goldschmidt in terms of millions. So Goldschmidt's got a chance to reel in Guerrero with a couple strong outings and some more fan support. Former New York Yankee Gleyber Torres has a wide lead on second base. Former Yankee Trey Sweeney also in the running at shortstop. So there's
It would be nice to have one of them right about now.
Litany of former Yankees sprinkled about that could potentially be going to Atlanta. But as it stands, yes, Ben Rice also in the race at designated hitter. He is over 500,000 votes, though, behind Ryan O'Hearn. Former Yankees as well. You want to look to what could potentially happen in the National League. Juan Soto is in 5th in that running. He's obviously the most notable former Yankee a lot of people are checking in on and where he could be in this race. And I would say Max Fried would probably be all but a guarantee to be heading out there as well, although Skubal would probably be the starter if things rounded out today. So there's going to be some Yankees in Atlanta, no doubt about that. Who it will be is still obviously going to remain to be seen. I would say right now, if I had to predict outside of Aaron Judge and Fried, I think we'll see Goldschmidt make his way out there. I think we'll even see Ben Rice make his way out there too, which will be really, really cool. And maybe, just maybe, there's a chance Belly could reel in one of those guys with a couple strong performances. So I think there'll be certainly Yankees in that end, and I think Luke Weaver would almost be guaranteed a spot. Beyond that, we'll see, but I think there's definitely going to be a strong Yankees presence out there at Truist Park.
I mean, the Yankees coaching staff or the AL coaching staff will be led by Aaron Boone, and a little fun add to that one is former Yankee manager Joe Torre, who got mentioned on last week's show when we said Aaron Boone could be fired like they did to Buck Showalter, then Torre won it all. Now they'll work in the same exact dugout on the American League side. I'd like to put in a conversation for what Carlos Rodon has done, but I think that's still in his left hand. I think it matters on what he does over the next couple of weeks. Right now, a 3.10 ERA for Rodon, but what he's been able to do has been consistent for the New York Yankees. He's got roughed up a couple times, but outside of that, he has been consistently solid, and it's a guy that the Yankees have had a lot of success because of, and I think he deserves at least a look into Atlanta. I mean, I really think this is a complete side note and irrelevant to the Yankees in general, but really to baseball. I'd love to be able to vote for pitchers for the All-Star game.
Yeah.
I understand why they don't, why they have the managers and coaches or do it, because you have to look at pitch counts and innings and, all that stuff. But it would be fun. Like, there's got to be a way that you could make it that the fans have a little bit of say in the pitchers. Because I think, Carlos Rodon would probably be up towards the top of the American League. I think Yankee fans would really, really, make that case for him and really vote the heck out of him. So I think that's something that would be fun to see over the next couple of years. Not sure if it's going to happen, but I did want to throw that out there and say that it would be fun.
I think it'd be pretty cool. I really want to see who ends up in the home run derby this year. I don't know if we're going to have some top tier guys in the derby. It doesn't seem super likely, especially Acuna's coming back from injury. So I highly doubt.
He's been so good, though, since coming back.
Yeah, but do you risk putting him out there? I highly doubt it.
For the fans of Atlanta and a team that's doesn't look like they're going anywhere this year, you might.
I think Cal Riley's got to be the top name everybody's going to want to see out there outside of Aaron Judge, but I don't see, obviously, Judge doing it again after what it's done in his swing in the past, and I don't see Riley risking it either. So after that, I have no idea who's going to be in the Derby this year, but I mean, at the very least, it'd be fun if we could pick guys, just like you said with pitchers, maybe vote one fan guy into the Derby. I still don't think that a lot of these guys want to do it anymore, especially
becoming the dunk contest.
I
will say the home run derby has kept a couple more names in it than the dunk contest. Obviously, Pete Alonso, you'd have to imagine he'd want to do it. I don't know if he'll.
The biggest home run derby sweat.
I mean, he has fun with it. He's the reason, though, it's still relevant. Let's be real here. Like it's
alive.
So I think there's some guys, and it's just batting practice at the end of the day, not actually, but because you're pressing and trying to hit those home runs. But I think the home run derby, they keep changing the format, trying to make it a little bit more player friendly. So I think it could be a good time, and I don't think we see any Yankees in it. I don't think we see Yankees in it for a really long time because of what it did to Aaron Judge. I mean, you could maybe at some point, if the All-Star game makes its way back to Yankee Stadium, I think Judge might do it then. And maybe you get some other players by that point that can hit consistent home runs. But I think All-Star Weekend will be fun. I think the Yankees will be well represented. I think you and I should get our names in the celebrity softball game, but I don't know if they'll let that one fly.
I don't know. I'm going to gun for Fanatics games next year so that I can try to take $1 million from Tom Brady, because the fact he won is ridiculous.
We should have our own home run derby.
We could do that.
You and I find a little league field, find a pitcher, and see which one of us hits more home runs, and stream it here or record it here for Bomber Boys.
This is an idea we might need to workshop. And honestly, with the right of guys not wanting to do the actual home run derby, if we send this right now to Rob Manfred, we could be heading out to Atlanta to be in the
Well,
actual.
I was thinking like the little league fence that maybe is 200 feet. This way
The
we can
celebrity
actually hit a
softball
couple.
fence, or
Yeah,
even
basically.
that.
Yeah, no, maybe a little longer. Depends what field we can find with a fence.
I got a couple ideas. This could work.
This could work. This could work. But
Jeez.
any other thoughts on the Yankees?
I mean, we've kind of ran through a lot of it. I think this is a winnable stretch here. I might be eating my words next time we get on this program, but you got a great American ballpark. You got an opportunity in Cincy here to maybe rattle off two with a couple quality outings. And then after that, I mean, you do have the A's on the horizon, and then things get a little bit rough. But I mean, we're going to have a 4th of July clash with the Mets. That series is going to be fun. But I mean, as it stands, this is a winnable stretch before you and I get together again. And hopefully that is something that we are saying next week. We're jubilant. We're heading into the Subway Series next weekend, and things are great. But given how we started things off with last week's first show back, I'm less than optimistic.
2 against the Reds. Anthony Volpe will get a day off on Thursday because everyone gets a day off on Thursday. So he'll finally get some time, maybe to regain some confidence. The A's for 3 games at the stadium over the weekend. Blue Jays come into town, and that will be the next time we talk to you before the Subway Series. And then just a couple games, and before you know it, the Midsummer Classic will be there. Dylan, I used to do this when we were at the studio. Any cool plans coming up?
Heading to Punta Cana in the next 24 hours. So that'll be exciting. Heading out to the DR for a nice relaxing vacation before the real life starts a little bit more. But I'm pumped for it. You're coming off a great trip to Pocono. Hey, the Bomber Boys are keeping busy right now.
Hey, Pocono, and then I'm going to Maine early next week before coming back to visit where I interned last week. So lots of travel, keeping busy while we figure out the next steps in our life. Remember to follow us on Instagram and Twitter or X, whatever you call it, at Bomber Boys Pod. Subscribe to our YouTube at Bomber Boys Podcast, as well as following along on Spotify, the Bomber Boys Podcast. For Dylan Price, I'm Justin Chevalier signing off. We'll see you next week here on Bomber Boys.